Oh, hi, everybody. Great to see you. Don't mind me making noise, just opening up my little iced tea here. Great to see you. It's June 1st. It's a new month. Aren't you feeling great about this month? Psychologically, I am completely out of the pandemic mindset. And now I'm into the riot mindset. Of course, I'm not a rioter myself. I'm a critic of riots, just like I was a critic of the overreaction to the pandemic. But there's certainly a connection. I think, first of all, you coop up in small houses, no social activities, no barber shops, no parks, no movie theaters, no bars, no restaurants. You coop up tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people. Don't be surprised if in a lovely spring night they want to go out and blow off some steam. And if some agents provocateurs decide to turn that into a full-blown riot. Second of all, what a laugh, what a mockery it makes of the fake social distancing rules. Oh, you can't be within 6 feet of someone. Oh, you can't go out without a mask. Oh, well, there are masks, all right. There were Antifa masks of the thugs who were burning places down, happy to wear a mask to conceal, at least in part, their identity. So on the one hand, you have, I don't think anyone is seriously pretending that the United States, or for that matter, Montreal, do we have the, I know Yankee tweeted it, of the guitar shop in Montreal being looted. Because nothing says social justice for a, was that in LA? Or it was in Minnesota, pardon me. It was in Milwaukee, right? The George Floyd case. I think that was in Minnesota. Sorry, Minneapolis, thank you. Sorry, not Milwaukee, that's Wisconsin. Getting my M's mixed up. So, Minneapolis, nothing says justice for police brutality in Minneapolis like smashing windows of a guitar store in Montreal and stealing the guitars. Don't you get it? That's how we fight for social justice. Just smashing them and, hey, yeah, take some guitars, sure. Why not? Just smash the windows down because that's how we fight for justice. Look at that in Montreal. Grab a guitar for social justice, stolen guitars for social justice, stolen guitars for social justice. Where are the cops? Who knows? I'm not going to particularly pick on police in Montreal because it was everywhere in North America. That was the only city in Canada of which I'm aware that devolved into a riot. Here in Toronto, do we have any Toronto viz? There was a big march through Toronto, but I don't think it turned violent. It was just, marching. In fact, it looks like they're almost doing their social distancing there, very Canadian. Lots of masks. I don't know if those are health masks or Antifa masks or a bit of both. I think people just wanted to go out for a walk. And if this made them feel righteous and noble, and yeah, all right, you fight the power lady. There are some African Americans there, but most of them look like just Torontonians out for the day. There's someone bringing his kid, so he obviously doesn't think it's going to turn into anything bad. So other than the Guitar Liberation Front, I think Canada has so far been fairly peaceful. I understand there's I almost laugh at saying this, Antifa Calgary march today. Antifa Calgary, I'm not sure what the rule is in Alberta about how many people you can have a gathering. I think in Ontario it's still 5. So Antifa Calgary should all be able to get together without a problem because I think there's only 5 of them in Calgary. But it'll be interesting to see how that goes. So what are we doing here? First of all, I want to show off my haircut. And by no means would I say it makes me look good, but it makes me look less bad. And I absolutely got a black market haircut. Do we have any viz of that? You got some viz of me getting an illegal today. That's right. Oh my God, I'm going so bald. Why didn't anyone tell me? I hate to see myself from behind. Oh, I just look so ugly. I'm just such an ugly man. And what's that red thing? That's just terrible. I'm just a hideous. Oh my God, take that off the screen. Thank you. I am oh, jeez. I'm lucky I'm married. Because how do you even go out in public if you look like that? Oh my God, I'm an ugly, ugly man. Why didn't anyone tell me? So I got a haircut, and frankly, I'm done with the whole pandemic BS. I'm done with fake social distancing that only the little people are asked to do, but not the politicians. I'm done with the playgrounds being locked down. I'm not going to confess to any crimes here today, but my view is that if your playground has yellow police caution tape on it, just follow the instructions and play cautiously. That's my advice. Okay, let's read some of the super chats. This is what we do here to do. I'm sorry, I just literally came from getting my hair did to here, and I'm catching up. I want to tell you what we do here every day, and then I want to show you some hot vids recorded last night in Washington, D.C. by one new rebel. We've got some new rebels doing some rebellious work, I should tell you. And Anna Slatz is one of our journalists, and she went to Washington, D.C. last night. And do you have just a sample of some of her vids? So Anna went down to D.C., and you would say, well, what's Washington, D.C. got to do with it? Well, look at this. She was right up close. These police, they're walking backwards. They were sort of retreating. I watched Anna's Twitter feed all night, and these cops are really being pushed backwards, right? Like when cops are in retreat mode like that, that is not good. Obviously, the police have weapons, and they could theoretically hold their ground and fight back, but do they really want a bloody melee? Torching just trees, because that's how you get racial justice, is you burn beautiful trees down. Not sure the exact location, but I understand much of this was very near the White House itself. This is a fancy part of Washington. There are some very poor parts of Washington. Is that a hotel or a restaurant? Looks like a restaurant. Smashed windows, yeah. The population of Washington, D.C. is very split. I'm not necessarily saying segregated, but there's some very wealthy people in Washington, as you would imagine, whether they're just well-paid bureaucrats or very well-paid lobbyists, and the businesses that serve them. And there's also very poor parts of Washington, D.C. They don't always follow a racial breakdown, but they do to an extent. So those are the ritzy, fancy parts of Washington that are all smashed up, vandalized, and torched today. And I was there, and she took a lot of videos. And the funny thing is, do you have her tweet about going back to her hotel and finding it all boarded up? So Anna checked into her hotel and then went out to report, and we'll have a proper report later today. She came back to her hotel and the frame was boarded up. I mean, makes sense, right? If you're a hotel, do you want your windows smashed? Why not put some plywood up? And she came back and yeah, look at that. I'm crying, I think she meant metaphorically. I get back to my hotel and they done boarded the whole thing up. After I left, laugh. I don't know how to get inside. Click on those vids. Click on the two pictures there. And what's the next one? I'm not quite sure what that second one is. It's just the ground outside, I guess. Can we zoom in? What does that sign say on the door? Is it readable or is it too small? Probably, that's imagine that. You check into a hotel, you go out into the city, and you come back and your hotel literally has boarded itself up in the interregnum. So I'm very proud of how Anna is doing. And can you read that, or is it just too small? Maybe there's some advice. Enter something. Anyway, she did obviously manage to get in. She let them know that she was a guest, and they let her in another door. Lots of super chats. So let me read those. What are we doing by super chats? You know what I'm talking about. Super chat is when you chip in 5, 10, 20 bucks. So I've seen people chip in over 100 in the past. Super chat makes your comment in a bright color, and we get 70% of the dough. So it's a way of helping us if you like our journalism, or if you just want to say, how do you do, chip in a few bucks. It makes your comment bright colored and appended to the top of the little box there. And if I don't read them right away, no problem. My friend and producer, Justin, sends them to me in the middle of the show if I miss them, and I reread them. So I'm just logging in here a little bit. Let me go through them. Proud Boys Calgary, $5. PB press release. Contrary to mainstream media and Twitter's reporting, Proud Boys were not starting or present in any ridings. Sino Partium Comunista de Lenda S, the Chinese Communist Party must be destroyed. Yeah, of course the Proud Boys weren't there. You can even see who it was. The idea of trying to rebrand this as a right-wing white supremacist protest is so absurd and laughable. But if the mainstream media signs on to that narrative, that's all we'll be hearing. Captain Untlick, $5. Was the Chinese hoax actually to bankrupt as many companies as possible? Well, I think China did absolutely lock itself down, but they're an authoritarian kind of place. They also lied about what was going on, so I think the West had the worst of both worlds. They said, oh, if China's locking down its people, we ought to as well. And then China's probably not telling us how bad it is, we should assume the worst. That disinformation and misinformation, plus, I don't know, a gullible public health community or industry in the West, was the worst of all worlds. And absolutely, by the time we're done, it'll be clear that more people will have died from suicide, from the depression and anxiety, from the whole pandemic panic than from the pandemic itself. Certainly for anyone under the age of 70. The median age in so many communities for death is over 80. And that's not good, but it shows that this is not a disease that young people ought to have been overly worried about compared to the annual flu or pneumonia. Proud Boys Calgary, Antifa Calgary limited to maybe 6 low energy anemics. Yeah, more likely they're just a paid front by the labor unions looking to agitate. Wild Oats, $2. Morning, Ez, nice do. Well, thanks very much. I really am ugly. You saw me getting a haircut, the worst of all camera angles. No makeup on. I put a little bit of TV makeup on just because I have rosacea. So just really, really, really ugly stuff. And I'm now 7% less ugly. Steve Bent, $20. That haircut video made my day. Are you kidding? I was appalled. Everyone should see a picture of themselves from behind. See how bald they're getting, see how big their ass is, and just generally realize you look worse than you think. The Great Awakening, $5. Are you confident your lawsuit will hold Justin Trudeau accountable? No, of course not. We won our last lawsuit against Justin Trudeau and the Federal Debates Commission. We were allowed in to report on the debates, and then Trudeau went right back to his censoring behavior. What does he care? I mean, it's not his money. He spent $131,000 fighting against our lawsuit. He lost. What does he care? It's not his money. Tony Walmsley, £2. Well, thank you very much, Tony. VM Parliament, $5. Are you able to get that music soundtrack from The Source? I love that one. Well, isn't that friendly? I bet we can find it because there's little clips of it on YouTube. So I don't know, Justin, if you want to. I think Victoria there is talking about just the opening theme song. There wasn't even a song, it was just a melody, or a sound. Wild Oats, $2. Rumors, are feds gearing up for a fall election? Well, I've seen some activity by Elections Canada requisitioning some material. I can't remember offhand what it was. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Justin Trudeau had a snap election to endorse his outstanding pandemic leadership and his economic lack of a plan. I think I've caught up with the super chats. Justin will bring me up to speed if not. I've got a lot of videos. I want to play videos. Let's start with a feel-good video. Justin, it's called SWAT Police Punching Antifa. If you're frustrated by what you see on TV, find the little moments that get you through the day. Like here's one of them. Take a look. Yeah, what was that, 1 second long? An Antifa guy was meddling with a cop's gun. Here's an idea. Don't touch a cop's gun. Let's watch that just one more time. Don't touch a cop's gun, especially if you're Antifa. Boom. Yeah, don't touch a cop's gun. That's a bad idea. Don't do that. There's some. I'm going to show you some terrible footage now. Do we have a dog video at the end of the day today? We'll get one. Okay, I want to show you a very frustrating video of thugs beating a female store owner. There's a lawlessness and anarchy here. Like I say, I started by showing you the guitar robbery in Montreal, completely unattached and unmoored by what happened in Minnesota. Even if it was done in the name of Minnesota, even if there was some connection, it would be unacceptable. But imagine stealing guitars from a store in Montreal in the name of racial justice. Look at this female store owner being beaten. This will make you sick. Take a look. I can understand why a small woman, small physically, would try to convince 5, 6, 7 men not to destroy her business that she has surely put not just years of her time and countless thousands, millions of her dollars into. More than that, she put herself into it, her moral energy, her hopes, her emotions, her beliefs and her plans. I can understand why someone would try and do that. But if you are a 120-pound woman and you're dealing with 5, 6 guys, armed, thugs, smashing windows, you're not going to win that. You need an equalizer, which is where the Second Amendment in the United States comes in to allow people to have firearms. You know, actually, I saw a tweet last night. I don't even know if you'll be able to find it. I retweeted it about a community in Washington State where it's an open carry county or state, apparently, according to this tweet, and just hundreds of law-abiding gun owners just went out into the streets with their vehicles and their guns overtly on their hips, just sort of. The police were in, I showed you the police were in retreat in Washington, D.C. In this Washington State community, I don't know if that's even possible for you to find, Justin, based on my description on it. I've retweeted so many things in the last day. Probably, yeah. So here's someone driving by, and I don't know if you can see, they're just packing heat. Can you show me what this video is called? Because the description on this tweet will tell us the information that I'm doing a poor job of remembering. Citizens in Bellevue, Seattle suburb, are protecting their neighborhoods from rioters and looters. And is there any more in that video? Can we watch a little bit more of it? So they're out on the streets closing off entrances. I think they're packing. I think that guy had a gun, right? Yeah, you're not getting through here. Good for them. Because, when seconds count, police are minutes away. We like police when they help us, but sometimes the police don't or won't or can't help us. We saw in Minneapolis a few days ago the mayor literally ordering the police to abandon the police station. Well, if they won't even defend their own police station, how can you count on them to defend you? In the United States, they have the right to bear arms. You know what? I saw a video this morning. I'm sorry to throw these things at you. A guy outside a cigar store with a gun shouting at the looters to get the hell out of his business. It was actually very exciting, very riveting. It's the opposite of that woman. We were here. Let's take a look. Sound up. Let's run it with sound up if we can.
They broke into a cigar shop.
That is black.
Get the fuck out! Stay away!
Someone's business, yo.
Someone's business, yo. Well, more than someone's business, someone's property, someone's life, someone's hope, someone's plan to get ahead in life. Someone's plan to pay for the groceries and rent. Someone's plan that maybe their son or daughter will become a doctor or a lawyer, or someone who doesn't have to work 16-hour days in a retail convenience store selling, I guess that was a cigar store. You know how hard that is to make your money, $2, $3 at a time. Sell a pack of smokes. I don't know what it is there. I don't even know what it is in Canada. Is it $10 for a pack of smokes? So you're keeping, as the retailer, what, $3 or $4? So you're trying to make a living, $3, $4 at a time. And then some thugs smash in because of why? And luckily that guy had a gun. And luckily for the looters inside, he did not shoot them. He hollered them, hey, look, someone's business, yo. Yeah, it's all someone's businesses. You know, there was a older black woman who was interviewed. You have that clip. I think it's the last one on your list there. Pretty thrilling to see all the smashing. A lot of Hollywood types pledging to support bail for these people. For every store that's smashed or looted, there's a guy like that who put his life into it, a woman like the one who was smashed. Here's an older black woman. Take a look at this.
You and so many others are going through such a rough time. How was last night?
Scary. I live in the high-rise right back here, and I seen them as they came down Lake Street. But then they turned and started coming over here, and I'm sitting out looking out my window. And they went straight to Office Max, the dollar store, and every store over here that I go to. I have nowhere to go now. I have no way to get there because the buses aren't running. These people did this for no reason. It's not going to bring George back here. George is in a better place than we are. And last night, I'm going to be honest, I wish I was where George was because this is ridiculous. These people are tearing up our livelihood. This is the only place I could go to shop. And now I don't have anywhere to go. I don't have anywhere to get there.
I know you mentioned, being in your home last night. And
Who do you think, like if the riots happen in black majority cities or black neighborhoods, who do you think is hurt by that? Let me read some super chats. Bruiser Battersby, $20. Interesting how these riots have taken over the media. We're no longer talking about the atrocious LTC report, COVID-19, and absolutely no mention of the RCMP making thousands of changes to the FRT with no public notification. I think you're talking about firearms there. Does that not prove that you need, at the end of the day, who will be there to protect you at the end of the day? When the police themselves either Police can't be everywhere. We don't live in a police state. Even if the police were out with great success, even if they were backed by mayors and governors who supported them, it's not enough police to take care of everything. It's not enough police to literally guard every street. Our system of law and order depends on the consent of the governed and a general social contract whereby we all agree to give up violence to limited use by the state, by police. If hundreds or thousands of people reject that and say, I'm going to get violent, and the rest of us have no recourse, what are you going to do? What did that lady do? She got pummeled, compared to the guy in the cowboy hat defending his cigar store. Only one of those two people was smashed up. I feel very bad for that lady. Dr. Five, $5, thank you. Proud Boys Calgary, $5. Proud Boys Max and John in prison for defending themselves for 15 seconds against confirmed domestic terrorists. JusticeForLiberty.com to help John's family. I know that story. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There's this insane Marco Rubio video. So I'm just waving. I see an old friend coming in to our control room there. I saw Marco Rubio. In fact, can you find the Marco Rubio video? He tweeted it. He did a video where he says these riots that we've all seen with our own eyes are the work of far-right or white supremacist groups. I tell you, if they're white supremacist groups, they're certainly deep, deep, deep undercover. Apparently, white supremacist groups have infiltrated the Black Lives Matter or something. I don't even understand. Is Marco Rubio trying to curry some favor with the mainstream media, or is he just, I don't even understand this vid. Let me know when you have it. Yeah, let's play the vid. No, it's not this one. It's just a picture of Marco Rubio sitting in his desk. And it was yesterday. He was just speaking to the camera. You have it? Let's take a quick look. As soon as it's ready, just roll it with the sound up.
Yo, they got guns drawn.
Oh, we're still just hooking it up. We had a lot of videos on the go there. Not all the facts are in, I grant you, but we can see with our own eyes enough facts of who is causing the riots. But here's what Marco Rubio, a Republican senator, has to say about that.
Murder of George Floyd is both a tragedy and a travesty. And the anger we've seen built around it isn't just justified, but is also more than just about Mr. Floyd's murder. It is about the fact that a substantial percentage of the American family believes and feels that their issues receive less attention and their lives are held with less value because of their race, because of the color of their skin. This is an ongoing problem that has haunted us for far too long, and it must be addressed. And the anger you saw spill over in these protests across the country, well, that's where it comes from, as much as anything else. Unfortunately, however, while these protesters that are out there to talk about these issues and to point to Mr. Floyd's murder, these protesters have been largely peaceful. They are not the ones looting and burning and hurting people. But something happens at these protests right around sundown. Suddenly, they start to turn violent. And they start to turn violent because some people show up. And they show up with backpacks, and in them they have batons and incendiary devices. We've heard reports of people showing up in trucks to begin to take things out. And that's when the looting starts, that's when the violence starts. Who are these people? Because the real protesters on the ground will tell you they don't know who they are, they've never seen them before. These people are violent domestic extremists. And they range from Antifa groups who are radical to the left to some other groups radical to the right. In fact, groups that I would argue don't even belong on the political spectrum as we know it. And their goal, while they are...
Now, I agree with the first 95% of what Senator Rubio said there. No one could have watched the original video of the man in Minnesota being crushed by that cop and not felt deeply uneasy. And to later learn that that cop had more than a dozen complaints of violence against him is shocking. And I think it's right that he was arrested and will be prosecuted. I agree with that. And I do agree. As a Canadian, I'm not an American, so I shouldn't speak to American domestic issues, perhaps as I should defer. But how can you dispute that African Americans have social grievances that ought to be heard? I also agree that he correctly observed that there's a difference between peaceful protests and peaceful protesters and the professional Antifa-style rioters who show up equipped and ready to rumble in a violent way. I agree with all that. But what was that right-wing part he added at the end? Can you name for me a right-wing group that's been involved with these Black Lives Matter protests? Was he throwing that in there to seem even-handed or something? I found that just bizarre. Lots of super chats. Let me catch up on those. Okay, boy, we got a lot. I'm sorry, let me catch up. There's so many here. Flat Earth Data, $7. What if 1 million people called or emailed at once and demanded the arrest of these corrupt leaders? What about a civil lawsuit for 0.2% death rate? I think you're talking about the pandemic with the death rate question there. Look, I don't know about a civil lawsuit for the death rate. I think a lot of people were confused and did not know the facts about this virus, especially since China and the World Health Organization were obviously being so opaque about it. I think now that we know, thank God, the virus was not much deadlier than the annual flu season. I think the question is now that we know, how can we still have massive lockdowns of the economy? And I think that there will be worse health ramifications from loneliness, suicide, depression, and just poor health, and people not going to hospitals for regular checkups, for example. TrubyD 44, $20. Did you see where the sports writer Chris Palmer, absolutely, can you find that sports writer? You know, I think it's Chris Palmer, NBA, supported the burning and looting when it was in downtown LA, but when it got close to his gated house, he didn't. What is abhorrent is when he was called on it, he doubled down, sad. I did see that. I don't know if you can find that, Justin. So Chris Palmer is, you know, he's a one percenter. He writes writes about the NBA. He's a black man, and he was very, very cheering on the riots, including when they torched. Yeah, look at that. So someone wrote, "What a photo!" And you see that building there? I'll tell you more about that building in a second. And Chris Palmer says, "Burn that shit down. Burn it all down." And then the same guy, so just go back to the first one there. So look at the date on the bottom, at the very bottom. So May 28th, he's cheering the burning of a building. I'll tell you more about that building in a moment. Next image. So 3 days later, they just attacked our sister community down the street. It's a gated community. They tried to climb the gates. They had to beat them back, then destroyed a Starbucks, and are now in front of my building. Get these animals the F out of my neighborhood. Go back to where you live. Ho, 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 ho. I mean, you normally don't have a fancy pants in a gated community say it so bluntly. Burn it all down. Burn it all down. And then go to the next image. Because, the one on the right there, because as Jack points out, that building isn't just any old building. That is a 189 unit affordable housing development. Do you see that same picture? The apartments were expected to hit the market later this year. Minneapolis vandalism, that's what they're called. Oh, is that vandalism? Vandalism is when you spray paint something. Vandalism is when you break a window maybe. Sorry, that's not vandalism. When you torch a 189 unit low-income housing unit, that is what this fancy pants gated community type was cheering for. Unbelievable. Absolutely believable, actually. I mean, Steve Carell, one of my favorite comedians, was saying online how he's going to chip in to pay the bail for these rioters. You know, Abraham Lincoln is said to have quipped, whenever I hear someone supporting slavery, I have an inkling that it ought to be tried on him. I'm paraphrasing. That's a great line, isn't it? I use that sometimes for censorship. If anyone's advocating for censorship, I think they ought to try it on him first. You know, that's my revising it with a different issue. And I think it's, if you're supporting a riot that burns down houses, if you're Steve Carell, multimillionaire Hollywood celebrity, funny guy, and you're cheering and you're actually going to put your own money to bail out the rioters? Well, yeah, look at that. So all these leftist Hollywoods matched. He's matching donations. And Ben Schwartz, how much did he donate? Click on his name there. Matched. And who was he? Seth Rogen. All these leftists, they're all donating. And they're all matching each other. They're matching each other's virtue signaling. $50. I'm sure Steve Carell chipped in more than $50. Hey, why don't, if you love rioting so much, why don't you love it on your house? As we saw from that NBA writer, he becomes panicky and apoplectic when it's his skin in the game. He's happy to have other people burnt down. All right, let's catch up here with Super Chats. Graham, $10. It's amazing how the lockdown and now the riots target small business and their employees. Meanwhile, the guaranteed pension class seems to enjoy this just fine. First vacation, now entertainment. I'm afraid you're right on that. That's very perceptive. Tony Walmsley, £2. Please share your thoughts on the anonymous or anonymous video. I don't know what video you mean. Which anonymous video? Oh, Justin says that a computer was hacked. Justin, send me a link or something, or show a link, because I don't understand. Old man, $2. The left eat their own, I think. Philip Smurley's $5. Ezra, can you run for prime minister, please? We can't have a communist sympathizer in charge. Well, I'm busy doing rebel media stuff, and we'll give commentary on the world. I think this is an important role for us to fill, whether it's through books or videos, written work, which we're doing more of, on-the-scene reporting, like Anna was doing last night, or when the pandemic lockdown ends, more live in-person events. That's an important role for us to do. In fact, we had can you go to Regina Speech, reginaspeech.com. We had an amazing event planned for Regina, the city in Saskatchewan, for 2 weeks ago. We had sold 1,660 tickets, if you can believe it. Just, yeah, an evening with Patrick Moore. And it's been rescheduled to September 16th, but it's a wonderful night. And the reason we're so proud of it is he was deplatformed for his point of view about carbon dioxide and global warming. He's not a sky is falling type. In fact, he believes carbon dioxide is the stuff of life. It's what plants breathe in, and all life on Earth depends on it. So he was deplatformed, and I called him up. He's an old chum of mine. I called him up and said, hey, don't be deplatformed. Let's book a bigger venue and sell it out. And indeed we did. The pandemic caused that event to be canceled, but it's rescheduled. So my point is, I feel like we really filled the gap on that. And I hope we do in other ways too. Okay, let's keep going. Kane Enmark, $5. Van Jones is a racist, sick man. Van Jones is a confusing case because I agree with some things he says very much. He's a skeptic of the Democrat Party, even though he is a Democrat. In fact, he's a communist. And on race, I don't follow everything he says, but I know he had a white wife. So I don't know his racial politics. Here's the anonymous thing Justin's found it. Did hacktivist group Anonymous take down Minneapolis Police Department website? I just don't know. I haven't read that story. I may come back to it later. Mankind, $5. Inciting revolt to usher in martial law. That's what I think is happening. Well, Donald Trump is asking for states to defend themselves. He doesn't have the authority, I don't think, to send in the military. I think he has to wait for the states to request the National Guard. I'm not an expert in American federalism, so I don't know how that works. But I think a U.S. state has to request the National Guard. I don't think the feds can send it. I could be wrong. I don't know my American Constitution enough. Max Leitner, I turned 16 last week. Please tag me, MaxL2004 Twitter. I'm a big fan of your videos. Don't forget to Twitter, bring back Rebel UK. Well, thanks, Max. I will look you up on Twitter. I know you've tweeted that several times, so thank you for doing that. The Great Awakening, $5. What are your thoughts on QAnon? I've been asked this before. I think QAnon is a fantasy and a diversion. And it feels like an attempt at a secret knowledge, and everybody likes to have a secret knowledge, a knowledge that other people don't have. That's one of the appeals of conspiracy theories, is that you say, well, I know something you don't know, and here's how it's really working, and look at these clues, and come be an insider with me, and have this secret knowledge and look at the code words, they're right in front of you. I think, first of all, it's not for real. I think, second of all, it's a way of avoiding dealing with reality. And I understand the feeling of wanting to be in the know. But let me say this. The world is crazy enough. The facts of the world are crazy enough. We don't have to venture into speculation or fabulism to find fascinating things. In fact, as I sometimes say to our reporters here, the craziest stories in the world are just lying out there. They're not even hidden. They're just unreported, or we're just looking at things wrong. So I do not believe in QAnon. And I know some good people do, and people of good faith do. I just don't. And I don't think you need to. I think the world is mad enough with the way it is. And let's be real and start fixing real problems. And I'm not disparaging. I'm just explaining why I'm not. Let's keep going here. Captain Untlick, $2. Would Pierre be a good leader for the PPC? If you're talking about Pierre Poilievre, I think Pierre Poilievre would be a good leader for any party. I certainly was rooting for him to run for the Conservative Party leadership, and indeed he certainly looked like he was. But then he backed out at the last minute. Even actually after the last minute, it looked like he had sort of started a national tour. I don't know why he did that. Was there some threat against him? Was there something that was dug up, opposition research against him? I don't know. But to me, he would have been the best candidate, certainly better than those in the race right now. Philip Smurley's $2. Do you have any updates on Tommy Robinson? Well, the last time I visited Tommy was in March when I went to the UK for one of his many court dates. Obviously, travel to the UK is greatly restricted because of the pandemic. I have spoken to him, and I have two pieces of news. The first is, obviously, his court cases are delayed because the courts there are shut down as they are here. Second of all, he's been kicked off TikTok, which surprised me because I thought, okay, it's a Chinese-run app. They're not sensitive to Western political correctness, but absolutely they are. They want to be beloved in America and Europe too. TikTok is the #2 most downloaded app in the world, both on Android and Apple. So they want to make money. They don't care about free speech, and they're Chinese government connected anyways, like Huawei. What do they care? So what's interesting is that Tommy has found a social media home. Where did he find it? Something in Silicon Valley, something in the UK, something in TikTok. Can you type in vk.com? It's a Russian website, the Russian version of Facebook, called vk.com. It even looks a little bit like Facebook. It has the functionality of Facebook. Doesn't that even look a little bit like Facebook right there? And I saw he was live streaming something. Isn't it strange? I guess that's just the login page, just like Facebook. When you go to Facebook, you get sort of a page like that. So to me, it's quite odd that the one place he finds freedom of speech is a social media company based in Vladimir Putin's Russia. Doesn't that say how far we've fallen free speech-wise? David Anderson, QAnon is the Buffalo Chronicle of Twitter. I think that's things that people want to believe but aren't quite true. The CKPWN, $20. I'm 30 years old and the government send people to clean. I signed for it and it's a veteran reality. Hopefully Canadian will wake up before they get ducked. Like, okay, I don't even understand your point. I don't want to misunderstand it. You may be speaking cryptically. It's a little too anatomically precise for me, but thanks for the $20. Kane Enmark, $10. Van Jones said whites have a racist virus in our brains. That was 2 days ago. I did see that comment. I think what he was saying is there's a latent thing that can manifest. And I think that's too far. If you can say that about white people, surely you can say that about any race. Perhaps any, there's an old saying, and I think old sayings typically have a grain of truth in them. Birds of a feather flock together. People naturally affiliate and associate with their own tribe, their own culture, their own city. It's the whole essence of why we each root for our own town sports team. And when it comes to race, it may be that there is a latent tendency to be skeptical towards the other. I don't dispute that. I think maybe his choice of wording was hurtful to people who would say I'm white and I don't have the virus of racism within me. So I don't think I would have said that myself, but I think that every single person has to work on that issue. But I will not say that America or Canada is systemically racist. How could it be? And I saw Ahmed Hassan the other day tweet out a crazy thread saying that Canada is a deeply racist society. And do you want to call that up, Ahmed Hassan? And a bunch of other liberals. And first of all, I thought, you're the guy whose leader has done blackface so many times he's lost track. But look at Ahmed Hassan. He came to Canada as a refugee from the failed state of... Yeah, look at this. Anti-black racism does not stop at the border. I have heard from people who have said that we should not worry about what is happening in the U.S. because that is not our problem. As a black man and a father of 3 young boys, I can tell you it is a lived reality for black Canadians. And then he goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on, calling us racist. And then Catherine McKenna, perhaps the whitest woman in the world, chimes in too. All of them so tone deaf they don't even realize it's their own leader who was the blackface. But here's what I have to say to Ahmed Hassan. He fled Somalia, the failed state. We saved his life. That's what he says. And we gave him everything, including a position of high office and high privilege. He has every privilege and power, more than 99.999% of any Canadians of any other race. Canada has been, in fact, before he became an MP, before he became a Liberal, he once said in a parliamentary committee, in fact, I don't know if you can find this, but I did a monologue on this 4 years ago, Justin. I don't know if you can find it. Ahmed Hassan once said that Canada is the best country in the world in which to be a Muslim. He said that. And what did he mean by that? Because you're not persecuted one way or another. You grow up Muslim in Somalia, where he was from, or any other, or Iran, or wherever, Saudi Arabia, whatever. You can be criticized, attacked, whether it's Sunni or Shiite or whatever. Ahmed Hassan testified before Parliament that Canada was the greatest place for a Muslim to live. That's what he used to say. I don't know if you can find that clip in a hurry. It's buried in a monologue I did on him when he was appointed to cabinet back in 2015, late 2015, so I don't even know if you can find that. I tweeted it. Actually, I tweeted it in reaction to what he said there. So there's a guy who used to be so grateful to Canada, he said it was the best place in the world to be a Muslim. And now he does nothing but call us racist all day long, which doesn't really match with the fact that he's a high cabinet minister with every privilege and perk. I hate that. And that shocking ingratitude. It's one thing not to say thank you, but it's another to look people in the eye with a snarl and say, you are racist. Yeah, buddy, if we were racist, you would be back in Mogadishu if we were racist. Thank your lucky stars you're not. And maybe reread the speech you gave in Parliament more than 5 years ago, where you said Canada was the best place in the world. That's Trudeau's effect. Let me know if you can find that. It's like a 20-minute, you know what, maybe we'll try and get it for another day. Because it's a clip that he said, good luck. Let me read some more super chats in the meantime. Belinda B, $2, thank you. Belinda B, $10. Hi Ezra, I'm a young black conservative woman living in Toronto. I'm appalled by what I'm seeing in the U.S. I love what you and Rebel Team are doing. Keep it up. Well, Belinda, that is very nice of you to say. We have supporters of every background. And I find it very gratifying to hear from you, because I know that we believe in a set of beliefs and values that people of any race can support. And so for you to say, I mean, I constantly hear that when I'm out in the streets, and it's such an antidote to white, liberal, politically correct Twitter. So thank you very much, and thanks for the $10. Philip Smurley's $2. Last message before I go. Dominique Fertio says hi. Well, thank you. Okay, I'm not sure exactly what you mean. The CKPWN, have you received and read the list of email I followed you to the Rebel Tips line? Wink one for yes, wink twice for no. Well, I don't know what your email would have, like what your name on the email would be, and I don't know what your tip is. We get a lot of tips every day, so I can't answer that without knowing more. The Great Awakening, $5. Sorry, Ezra, but Anons knew about Epstein 2 years before everyone else. That and more. See you on our side of the fence before November 3rd. Well, listen, people have been following Epstein for years. Mike Cernovich, Miami Herald, has done work on that for many years. That was sort of an open secret. In fact, he was convicted, and he was a registered sex offender, but he was let off with his knuckles wrapped very lightly. It was sort of an open secret, just like Harvey Weinstein being a serial rapist was an open secret, and it was allowed in Harvey Weinstein's case, not only because he was wealthy, but he was Mr. Hollywood. He would make or break people in the business, so people were afraid to take him on. And with Epstein, it was his money and his power and his connections, and the extortion. Dr. Fye, 20 bucks. Would like to see more Canadians get their PAL, that's possession and acquisition license. I think that's what stands for, the firearms license. Even just to go through the process to see what's involved. You pass the courses, background check, invest thousands in ammo and storage just so the government can arbitrarily ban it on a whim. That's a great point. I bet that the sale of firearms and ammunition in the United States is at an all-time record today. Because if you had to choose between being that woman who was smashed to pieces in front of her own store or being that guy in the cowboy hat who was getting the looters out of his cigar shop, which of those two options would you choose? All right, I've gone through the super chats. Any luck in finding that clip from Ahmed Hassan? You're still going through it? Okay. You know what? It's if you just skip from clip to clip. Yeah, he says something like, this is a better country than any. Oh, here we go. Justice, imagine that. I gave Justin a job 5 minutes ago. Find a 5-second clip in a video I did 5 years ago. How can you imagine? That's like me saying find a needle in a haystack, and he got it. Let's take a look. Oh, we got to pump up the volume. So this is him when he was the head of the
Liberty, Canadian Muslim who.
Which is interesting in itself, don't you think? Here, I'd like to show you some clips from that testimony. Take a look.
I'm a Canadian Muslim who's proud of his faith and heritage, and I truly believe that the Canadian and American values of liberty, democracy, rule of law, human rights, and respect for minorities do complement and work neatly with the tenets of my faith.
That's a good start, but he goes on further. Well, first of all, he would never say that today, would he? He's so angry, calling everybody racist, and what he said there, and first of all, praising America, he would never do that. Not if he wants to work for Justin Trudeau. And praising Western values of liberty as being harmonious with Islam, that's my kind of Muslim. That was him before he became a Liberal MP. So that's not exactly the clip I was looking for. It might be the next one where he actually says Canada is a better place to be a Muslim than Muslim countries. That's how he talked before he became a Trudeau stalking horse. So you found the right video, thank you. Now just skip forward to other parts of, and you know, why don't we go through it together? May as well do it live on TV, right? So just go to the next clip. You don't need any of my commentaries, but just sort of fast forward to those clips and let's just watch them together, Justin. So this is
those sorts of things. Here's more.
It is a fact lost on many Muslims, including Canadian Somalis, that it is countries like the United States and Canada that guarantee human rights and religious freedoms, that we can actually practice our faith best in these sorts of environment. The civil rights of our community members must be protected, but obviously it's also equally important to disseminate these integration-friendly messages in order to contribute to a process where our communities emphasize the defense and attachment to the countries of Canada and the United States.
That was it.
Did you get?
That's exactly. Did you hear what he said there? We practice our faith best in this environment of civil liberties, and we must be part of the community. That was so good. Can you play that again? If this was the Ahmed Hassan that we saw in Parliament today, in Cabinet today, I would say, let him be the Liberal leader, because that message is so spot on. Integration, patriotism, shared values of liberty. Shocking praise for America for a Canadian. He would never say these things today. Play that last clip one more time. Take a look.
Many Muslims, including Canadian Somalis, that it is countries like the United States and Canada that guarantee human rights and religious freedoms, that we can actually practice our faith best in these sorts of environment. The civil rights of our community members must be protected, but obviously it's also equally important to disseminate these integration-friendly messages in order to contribute to a process where our communities emphasize the defense and attachment to the countries of Canada and the United States.
We can practice our faith best in these sorts of environments and integration. Where did he lose those ideas? Where did he lose that? Why did he stop? Why did he stop saying that? Makes me sad, actually. Makes me sad. It's 12:57. I think we got through a fair number of vids. I want to leave you. We don't have a dog vid today, do we? I want to leave you. I like ending with the dog videos because they make me between 7% and 38% happier if you see a good dog video. My favorite dog videos are where the dogs sing along with their owners. How are you not going to love that? And it's also always fun to sing with someone who's a worse singer than you, my view, because that makes you look like a star. You sing with a dog, you're going to look great. But there is one other video that I found a little bit of hope in it. Here's some Antifa live streamers. So he's in the protests, and he's going around and he's trying to get left-wing protesters, Black Lives Matter protesters, trying to get them to start a riot, trying to get them to flip over a truck. And he's live streaming himself asking them. And this will make you feel better. Take a look at their reaction.
Oh! Can you flip this over? Can you flip it over?
What? Are you kidding me? You're asking us to flip over the truck?
Okay, no.
We do not instigate. We do not instigate because it comes back on the black and brown people.
Flip over the fucking truck?
No, just forget
We do not instigate.
This man just asked us to flip over the truck with his camera out.
No. I just got it down. What is it doing?
Flip over the fucking truck with his camera out.
What?
Who are you with?
What is that?
Wait.
What's this going on?
It's the exact problem right now.
What's this?
Hold it down.
No.
Did you hear that one lady? This comes back on the black community. So some Antifa agitator trying to get people whipped up into a riot, they refuse. They sort of holler at them. And they're exactly right. If that professional protester had his way, that would redound to the discredit of the Black Lives Matter protesters. Absolutely. Now I see another super chat from Mela H. says BLM is funded by George Soros. I'm sure it is. So is Antifa. He funds so many of these street gangs. And I think that in other countries around the world, he has actually tried to have civil insurrection. He has funded outright revolutions around the world. In Europe, the color revolutions, as they're called. Why would you think he wouldn't try and do so in the biggest prize of all, the United States, to defeat his most mortal enemy of all, Donald Trump? Of course he would. It's 1 o'clock on the nose. Thanks for joining me today. Thanks for your very friendly words on my haircut. I'll have my nightly show, as I usually do, at 8 p.m. Eastern Time tonight. I'll be talking more about Antifa, and we'll play more clips from Anna, who's down there today. But let me say goodbye to you now and leave you. Do we have a dog clip? We got a dog clip. Here's a dog clip. We'll see you later.